Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
I'm Sarah.
And we're here to give you our reading recommendations for this week's new comic book releases. And I think we should probably start with the wordiest book of the day. So, Sarah, what do you have?
Okay, I picked DC Silent Tales by Gustavo Duarte. And it is, as the title suggests, silent. There is no text. And despite the fact that it looks like Batman plays a primary role in this, he does not. He is in one of the 6 stories that appear.
What? DC putting Batman on the cover to sell a comic?
Yeah.
No.
But he does appear, so... but it's 6 different stories without any word bubbles. It's just kind of a really fun way. I love reading these ones with my 7-year-old just because then she's kind of... I'm like, what do you think's happening? And then she'll add her own text to what's happening. But there's a story that I like it because there's a wide variety. I mean, you have a story about Harley, and you have a story about Joker, but you also have a story about Cyborg. You have a story about Lobo. So it just kind of reaches the gambit of characters from the DC universe. And just tells these quirky little stories. If you like Zatanna, she's in here. She's got her own story. Who doesn't like a little magical experience
that
on a
would be
Wednesday?
very interesting, considering her entire thing is her magic is saying words backwards. So having to do a silent story for that is interesting.
Yeah. They handle it. I think Gustavo Duarte handles it in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely obviously she's talking, but you don't see any of it. But it's just a fun read. I think even as an adult, it's a fun read because it allows you some brevity from some of the more serious stories that are sometimes told in comics. And I think we've talked about this multiple times. That's what I love about comics is you can have this type of book that just kind of gives you this release, makes you laugh. The entire first story is Harley shows up as not as Harley. She's not really Harleen, but she's not in her complete regalia as Harley either, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I need to buy all these things to make this mallet. And then she goes back and robs the exact same store with the mallet that she made, but leaving the stuff that she actually used to purchase the mallet. So it's just, it's absurd, it's silly, but I love that comics also allow us, the more serious conversations too. So if you're looking for more levity out of a read this week, I would highly suggest.
Yeah, and it's got a super cool kind of
Tales.
Bruce Timm animation-esque kind of style.
Yeah, I
somewhere
like the
between that
arts
and some of the Teen Titans Go or something. I don't know, but
somewhere
it's also
in between.
But it also does have. It's not just for kids. It's certainly kid friendly, but it's not just for kids.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's good. I liked the art quite a bit.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Fritz, what did you pick this week?
So I picked Superboy, The Man of Tomorrow, new miniseries. I believe this was also the winner of their most recent round robin thing they did last year.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, so this series, it finds Connor Kent. A lot of people know him as the Superboy of the 90s. Some people might be more familiar with the version of him from the Young Justice cartoon from the last decade. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for a long time, he was one of the big main holders of the S.H.I.E.L.D. up there with Superman and Supergirl. But last couple years, there's been a lot of new super characters being introduced. He kind of didn't exist for a while in the comics due to shenanigans. But now he's been back for a bit, but he's also kind of doesn't really have his place in the super family as much anymore. So this is him trying to figure out where do I fit into things? What's my niche? And he decides I'm going to go out in space and try and save some people there. And honestly, all things considered, it's going pretty well for the most part. And then in typical fashion of books I pick, it doesn't go well.
I knew you were going to say that.
And then but then at the very end, in fairness, it kind of goes back his way, but maybe not in a good way. So we're kind of splitting the difference here. But yeah, I don't know. I've always enjoyed his character, and it's just very interesting to see him try and act it's interesting watching the text engage with the fact that what does the character do when they're kind of niche in the franchise is filled by other people now? What do you do with your life? And because like he still wants to be a superhero, he still wants to be out there saving people, but he just isn't sure like how he fits into that picture anymore with everyone else running around.
I really like. I'm glad they're embracing the jacket look.
Yes.
And the sunglasses, because it really works. I felt bad for him for the lengths that he had to go to be able to get out from under the super shadow.
Well, because there's the whole bit where he's just like, Keelix, show me all the emergencies happening on Earth, and Keelix is just like, they're all being handled. He's just like,
yeah. But at the same time, I really like that now this character has got a ton of space to be able to operate within. I think too often, particularly with DC, because they've got so many derivative characters, they all end up being part of this team, or they get some small city that they get to call their own or whatever. And those books just never, they don't sustain for a long time.
Yeah.
Because they're basically just living in the shadow of Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman or
And this is
Hal
him
Jordan
like
or whoever.
actively being like, what if like instead of like finding like a little niche somewhere, like just stepping onto like a wider stage.
Yeah, because I could totally see him, depending on how they go with this and whatever. We're not getting this out of this particular story, but I could foresee him bumping into Green Lanterns and doing, running into other people that we've seen in the DC universe and having his totally own separate adventures, which I think is genius.
Yeah, and especially if this creative team gets to do more with it. Something I did mention, Lindsay, the artist on this, they do a great job, especially with like the action scenes.
Yes.
Like they've got a very like dynamic, like you just feel the energy on the page. And especially also always love whenever someone was like, oh yeah, like he's got tactical telekinesis. He's not just your standard grab bag of Superman powers. He also can do that. So anytime an artist does that and an artist and writer add that into the story, that's always great. Yeah. But no, like if you're a Conner Kent fan and feel like he's gotten the short end of the stick for like the past decade plus, you'll definitely be happy with this comic.
Well, and you don't really need to know anything about him either.
And that's the thing too. Like because even if you're not a fan, like
close
it's
to
a good
clean slate.
Yeah, it's a good introduction to his character and how he's like even kind of like hot-headed and not think things through, but he's got like that Superman heart of gold, and it just shines through here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one too.
But speaking of things you enjoyed, Patrick.
Yeah, well, no hearts of gold in my book. This was the darkest book on the wall, I think, in both, actual physical pages being dark, but also the storyline. I picked 7 Years in Darkness. So, what if Harry Potter found out that his family was one of, I think it's 72 families that are in this black magic cult, and every once in a while, it's not like a set period of time, I think it's when an event happens, each of these 72 families have to send a child to this school that's inside of a cave to spend 7 years in the cave, not completely in darkness, but outside of sunlight, right? Devoid of sunlight, in order to train to become black magicians. And oh, by the way, only 7 of them are going to survive and ever get out of the cave, right? So it's like, you're a wizard, Harry. Now go live in this cave. So none of it's nice. It's like, take all the fun, nice stuff of Harry Potter and turn it all into, this would be a horribly traumatic experience for a
basically
teenager.
Basically kind of mixing like a little bit of Harry Potter with a bit of like Battle Royale, Hunger Game thing of just like, you get to go to the school, but also like you're going to be actively trying to be murdered the whole time.
Well, and I don't know.
More so than normal Harry Potter.
They don't really even tell you like how they're expected to die. So you don't know like, are they going to burn out? Is there going to, are they going to have to take on kind of like magical creatures? And if they fail gym class, then, magical creature eats them. We don't know yet in this book how all of that happens. We do see the first one perish, though. Like, somebody bites it right away. So this was, I'm not familiar with Joseph Schmalke, I'm going to guess, is how to pronounce the last name. But you said that you taught a panel.
Yeah,
at C2E2.
Yeah, I was at a con a couple weeks ago, and they were actually on a panel talking about like comics, and they were talking about this series. And it sounds like it's been like kind of like a passion project they've been working on for a while now.
Well, and I get that when I'm reading this, and it's always interesting to see the stories that somebody who's the writer and the artist on the book is doing, because then you get to see their entire vision,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not describing the story to somebody else and then, collaborating on it, which is also a great process. But it's interesting, especially today, we don't see it quite as often as we did in, say, like the 70s and the 80s. There were a lot of writers at the big publishers that were doing the art and the writing. So I'm really interested to see where this goes. The art is sketchy in that it's got kind of that frenetic kind of feel to it, which adds to the edginess of it. It's a lot of blacks and reds. Really muted kind of color palette. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. There were scenes in here that put me on edge just because they were uncomfortable. And I felt I really empathized.
I would hope so for a murder school.
Well, yeah, I empathized with the main character because, their whole world is flipped on its head really quickly. And nothing looks good. Like the future is not bright, Best case scenario, you come out as this twisted, evil black magician who happens to survive, and that's the best case scenario.
Just like normal high school.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. So if you had a traumatic junior high or high school experience, this will either, be cathartic or horrifying, one or the other. But all right, well, that does it for this week. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, do all those things that every channel tells you to do. I don't know why I even bother with it. We'll be back next week, but we'll be here all week at the store, so stop in and say hi. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you later. Basically, his grandma sells him down the river. And he's like, I don't want to go, Grandma. This sounds awful. And she's like, you'll do fine.
Too bad. Get
You'll
in the
do
cave.
fine. Get in.
Get the jabbing stick.
When am I going to see you again? Probably never.
Every grandparent needs a
Bye.
jab.
Enjoy school.